Hey there, I am so glad you're here. Come on in and enjoy Coffee Chat at the Cubbyhole. Okay, you might be thinking, coffee sounds fun, but girl, what is the Cubbyhole? The Cubbyhole was a divine little nudge on my heart, if you will, to build the space in our basement, in our home, where our friends and family could come and receive encouragement and love. And that's exactly what we've been doing. I've always known that the Cubbyhole would have a ripple effect out into the world, that it could bring encouragement and hope, not just to people that could visit here in person. That is exactly why I do Coffee Chats. I get to take some of the coolest people that are just like you and just like me, who have skill and talent, but most importantly, they have a vulnerable, relatable story that we can all glean some hope and encouragement from. So grab a coffee, cozy up, and enjoy Coffee Chats at the Cubbyhole. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee Chats at the Cubbyhole. I am so glad you're here. Today is going to be so powerful. I can't wait to introduce you to my beautiful friend, Christy Conder. We're going to be talking about so many different little things and so many stories that she's had in her life that she can just talk about to bring hope and inspiration, because that's what Coffee Chats is all about. But one topic that we're going to hone in on today is a phrase called church hurt or being church tired. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to overcome that, how it happens. But then we're also going to get into Christy's beautiful ministry and what she is doing to show the light of Jesus in the most simple, beautiful way. So the reason that this topic really struck me is it just came up, and Christy and I were just kind of joking. It's not that Christy claims or wants to necessarily be labeled as or known as a church hurt expert, so to speak. It's not what she necessarily goes around speaking about, but she can speak on this from firsthand experience, personally, and with people that she has worked with in ministry. I love this topic. When we were talking a couple weeks ago about our chat today, this just kind of evolved into this topic. And it struck my heart because I know personally, for me personally, and I know so many people that I love or I encounter, that they don't want to know anything about that peaceful notion of what we can find in Jesus because they've been hurt. I talk a lot about pivotal moments. And the pivotal moments in our lives, I'm all about our stories. And the pivotal moments in our lives are those moments where we go in a circumstance and something happens. And in that pivotal moment, we create a belief about ourselves or about the world or about the truths that have landed and seeped in our heart. And then that becomes our belief. And then that becomes our identity. And then the next thing we know is we're just acting on the quote unquote lesson that we learned. Like, don't show up big. Be sure to show up small. Don't, certainly in some cases, people believe, don't trust in faith. Are you kidding me? You're just going to feel shame and guilt. And that is a truth. That is not all the time, but with some people, that is the truth. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I am so excited to welcome my beautiful friend, Christy Conder. She is a comedian. She's also a master teacher. She focuses on children's ministry. So without further ado, I'm going to brag about a little bit more about her in a minute, but let me bring in my beautiful friend, Christy from Tennessee. Hey,
good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. I just had to run and catch something out of my dog's mouth. So I was like, I'm not going to make it back in time.
Oh my gosh. Was he choking or was he just like a shoe?
No, he found a chapstick. I have an addiction to chapstick. And so he found a chapstick and had it as, there he comes. And I was like, come here, give me that. He had the cap in his mouth and thinks it's a fun game to run and get away from me.
right when you're getting ready to do a live. That's
exactly.
the
Get it. So
oh, that is so funny. Well, I can't start anything without officially congratulating you. You are a graduate of Baylor University.
I am. Woo!
Congratulations on the NCAA championship. I really thought I always want to say Gorgonzola, but it's Gonzaga. I thought I was just, and not that I have any, real basketball knowledge, but I just kept thinking, oh, they're going to win. I was so excited for you and your team. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks. So we have a family, for years we've run a family bracket. And this year I was pretty confident in my bracket. And I was thinking I could take this because I'm going to go with my alma mater here. And it ended up, my husband beat me by 1 point in the bracket because he had Baylor as well. So because we both went Baylor, but I was like, like so close to winning our bracket.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations. I'm so excited for you. I was texting you saying Yahoo, even though I wasn't sure. I don't know. I didn't know how to determine who was going to win. I was excited for you.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a pretty big deal. So yeah, it was pretty fun around here. So to watch that come true. Now the women had done well for years. The women's basketball team is very well known as strong, and they've won 2 national championships, at least in the recent years. So it was, it was fun to see the men finally, come in and do their part.
Awesome. Well, I am so thankful for your time here on this Friday to be here for Coffee Chats at the Cubbyhole. You and I have had great conversation already, just gearing up for today. I've learned so much more about you. I mean, I know you as a comedian. Of course, I know you from the Christian Comedy Association, but I've loved your conversation because it just, like I said, it evolved into these so many different topics.
Right.
And so where I would love to start, first of all, is we're going to get into so many different things. You the ministry, your ministry, the teaching that you do. But let's just jump in right off the bat with, like I just said, we're joking that you don't want to be labeled as a church hurt expert. You're like, how did
I am an expert on church hurt.
On my business cards, check out my website. You'll see it.
Come to me when you have pain. And I've had the most pain. No, it's not that.
Well, really, I mean, this is a great topic. Mm-hmm. But really what your passion is, and we're going to get into that when we talk about your ministry, you really, basically, it's pretty simple. You just want people to know that God loves them.
Absolutely. I want you to know, I say, I want you to know that you know that you know that God absolutely loves and adores you. And I use both terms, that it's not just he loves you, because I think that gets thrown around too easily, the term love, and God loves you, and it just gets thrown away. But the adores you part is that he knows you intimately and knows everything about you and loves you on top of that. So it's not just a blanket thing. It's an intimate thing. He knows the hairs on your head. He knows everything about you. And to me, that's a comforting thing. It's not just love, it's adores.
See, now, okay, right there is so powerful that you said that, because that's the beautiful truth that we know. What you just said is that God knows everything about you. And it struck me right in that moment when you said that there are people, because it's how we say it, right? We'd say, God knows everything about you in such a beautiful way. But there are people that are saying, oh my gosh, God knows everything about me.
Right.
And they have so much shame. Mm-hmm. And again, not that you're wanting to claim that you're an expert in this, but you are in your own way with your experience working with people. Would you speak to that? It probably breaks your heart when you see people that are just filled with shame and guilt. And they're like, Jesus could never love me. I'm not even going there.
It kind of started out as people saying to me, I went to church, and that's a flag for me. I went to church, but I just couldn't for some reason. And the more I listened and the more I thought about it, and considered it, I was like, it goes back to even a person. So somewhere in the church, somewhere in their experience, a person represented who God was, and they got hurt by that person. So now they associate that with God and the church itself. And in my own life, I grew up in the church, and then going through some counseling later in life, that was the realization was, I'm associating certain phrases, certain words, certain rules with God that were given to me by certain people. And
Right.
so it was unraveling that and coming to a place of going, a lot of church hurt comes from interactions with people. And so when you identify that, you can kind of find the nugget in people of what was the hurt. What was it that turned you off to the church, and then therefore you associated that with who God is. And so I think you have to get to that part first before you can start the healing process of healing the heart from that. So that's where it comes from. It's just over time hearing the stories of people, why they've walked away, or why they've don't trust, why they don't want anything to do with God, or with, anything relating to him. So that's where that comes from.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because I'm all about the phrase "reveal to heal." You can't open healing it until you first dive in and recognize it and reveal it.
Right.
That was one of the passions. I actually had the word "recognize" written down because you said that often, people, before you can recognize it in the person, you're hoping that they can even recognize it. So where do you begin when they confide in you about this?
I just listen. I think I think we sometimes as Christians, we want to fix it real fast. And we think, oh, well, here's a verse, here's a thing, here's a perspective. You gotta, let's challenge that thought, or let's prove that thought wrong, whatever it is. And there's a great phrase that we're heavily involved in Young Life. And the phrase in Young Life is earning your right to be heard. And so part of that, in learning to earn my right to be heard with kids, with adults, with anybody that I meet, is that I have to listen first. I think that's the big key, is to listen, and to listen for the hurt, and try to dig to what the hurt is by asking questions, follow-up questions on that. Acknowledging pain. That's another thing, is acknowledging that, gosh, that stinks. That's not fair. And it's not all in one conversation either. It's relationship.
Right.
I used to laugh in that I would go, my husband's in the corporate world, and I would go to corporate events with him, and I would just listen. And people used to come to him and say, your wife is so sweet. She's so wonderful. And to him, and I'm like, I didn't say anything. They don't know anything about me, but all I did was listen. And it just, isn't that amazing? It amazed me. And I would always smile, because I was just like, people just want to be heard. And the easiest thing, I learned this in discipleship, the easiest thing for people to talk about normally is themselves. So when you're asking questions about themselves, they'll open up to you. And then you can start to, it's amazing that you start to, when you're just listening, they'll start to reveal things, and you just, pay attention to what they're saying, and really show interest and listen from a heart of just want to get to know you, which is kind of what God does for us. He just wants to know us. And so that's where it comes from, is just listening and finding the hurt, and but then not necessarily wanting to fix it right away, is earning that right to be heard, earning that right for me to be able to speak when it's the right time is key.
Right. And with that, if someone were listening to you, or a younger version of you, really listening, what would they hear if they asked you about your experience with this? If you've ever felt hurt?
In church hurt, it was more, in relation to that, it was that there's a couple of different things. I think the things I had to heal from were that one of the key ones was, God will do anything to get your attention, meaning he will hurt you in any way possible. That's what I heard. That
even that came up when we were talking. And the word violent ways, even.
Right.
So it's very intimidating.
Right. Very intimidating. Very much like an abusive parent. That's how I interpreted that. So there was a lot of fear-based, fear-based follow-up. It was more of a fear of what he's going to do to me if I don't do the right thing. And so I was a very good girl, but it was from a sense of fear.
Right.
And when I went into counseling, like I said, when I went into counseling, I had a fabulous counselor. He said to me one day, I want you to write down all the rules in your life. And I was like, oh my word. And he was like, I want you to write out all the rules. So next week I brought in the rules. It was 4 pages.
Wow.
Pages.
That's a great exercise. Write down that. Once you've heard the person and they come to you then with, okay, now what do I do? That's a great exercise because that helped you. That's powerful. Just listen to those pages.
Well, and I said, do you want to read them? And he went, no. He was like, I don't want to read those rules. I don't want to know how I'm messing up.
He knew they were pulling you down like a bunch of chains, or like I sometimes say, like sandbags on a hot air balloon. You know, God's wanting us to rise in, you know, His glory, but in the of who He made us to be, and in the rise toward freedom. Right. And those are just holding you down, and you may not have even known it. Thank goodness He did that exercise. And
then he said, I want you to write down who said those. And he said, we're going to call that the committee. That's the committee in your head. And I was like, wow. So I just had this, imagine them in this circle, you know, this big circle of the committee. And so that became the kind of the joke with my husband and I. And he was like, what committee member is that's talking to you? You know? And I was like, well, that's so-and-so, you know? And so it came to a head when the counselor just looked at me and said, you know, you need to have this out with God. You really need to just have this out and just throw and rip up these rules and start fresh. And I think I told you about it. I sat in a Kroger parking lot and it was raining, and I had a notebook and I just started writing, and I wrote like this. This was, you know, let's just write our things out. I wrote like this, and I wrote in force and power and just anger. And I just wrote down all these things, and I filled up another 4 pages of my frustration and my anger and mad at myself for these rules that I had put on myself. And I was nervous doing that. And I get emotional too. But at the end of that, I sat and huffed and puffed and cried. And I really felt the Lord in that Kroger parking lot saying, I'm glad we got that out. Are we done?
Are we done? And it was that simple. I had chills when you told me that story. First of all, there is something about a Kroger parking lot. Literally, like the come to Jesus talks, the cries, the ugly cry. Kroger. If y'all see me at the local Kroger, I might have just been, I don't know if it's that alone time just before you get out of the car, but I love that story. And I had chills when you told me that story because you heard God simply say, are we done now?
Yeah. Are we done?
Now we can move on.
Right. And it was a thank you. It wasn't a like, are you done? You know, it wasn't the abusive thing anymore. No. It was more of the, I'm so glad we got that out.
Yes. Finally now we can move on with our relationship. And you can see you the way I see you. And then you can think, you know, I'm imagining now you can
thank you. It was thank you for getting that out. I wanted you to get rid of that. And, you know, it was like a regurgitation of all the junk that had been in. And it was just get it out, get it out of that, out of your heart, out of your gut, out of everything. Just get it out. And now we can do what we're meant to do. And I was like, it was freedom. It was like you said that word, it was freedom for me, and going, oh yeah, now our relationship can start on a basis of relationship, not just fear and whatever I had, you know, come into in my head or formulated in my own head. So it was just, it was a change. It was an amazing change. Now, does the committee show up? Absolutely. There's less people on it, but there is the committee that's still in my head but they just don't have the power that they used to.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. Okay. You just said like 4 things I want to get to. The first is, one thing I know that I want to be very clear about, and I'm sure you want to be very clear about this too, is we're not talking about condemnation for church or
no, not at all.
That. Like that is one thing that I like to make clear all the time when this topic comes up, is that sometimes it's good intentions, right? By somebody who's trying to speak life into you. And you know what? A lot of times there's generational shame too. There's generational mandates. There's generational rituals.
Well, sorry, but what I wanted to say too is, and what I grew up learning about was that God dealt with people in different ways. So what got your attention, what got your attention is not going to be the same thing that gets somebody else's attention. And so we think, well, this is how God worked in my life, and therefore that's the way it's going to work across the board. That's not the way it works. God dealt with Paul differently than he did with Moses. God dealt with, Peter the different way than he dealt with Paul. So, I mean, God understands us as people and knows what we need. Because I think of Gideon. I mean, I go through all the scripture stories and things with kids, but I go, Gideon, did all these different fleeces out before God. And, somebody else would do that. He goes, we're not doing that. But Gideon was able to do that, and God understood that from Gideon's heart, that it was from a good place in Gideon's heart. But so the way that God deals with somebody else is not going to be the same way that he deals with me. But that's where I think the hurt comes, is that we listen to somebody says, well, this is how God's going to deal with you. And you go,
right.
What? And that's what somebody in the church says to you. But you have to go, okay, but my relationship might be a little bit different than yours. So that's what I grew up even learning too, is that my relationship is different, and understanding and recognize, like you said, recognizing that where that hurt comes from is most likely a person.
The word there that you said is the authority too, is that knowing our authority, our one authority. And we, as you just made perfectly clear, God is not meant to be, intimidating or harsh or violent, but that one authority. And when we reframe the word authority, it's just that beautiful love and acceptance and grace. But there's only one place that we're going to find that, and that is with God. And he will love you in the way that you need to be loved, and correct us. But we do seek so much authority in so many, and we grow up and we're respecting the authority, and respect this authority and that authority. And sometimes it becomes a generational chain, maybe of hurting people.
Oh, sure.
One of the things I talk to people about is, I for lack of a better term, is like bad advice, for example.
Right.
Or misguided advice. And that ends up trickling down. And then, we just kind of go with what we know. So I love everything that you're saying. And I also love what I want to focus on too, again, is the Kroger parking lot. Because again, I'm not saying, I know you're not saying, don't go to church. We love to go to church. We love to fellowship. There's beauty in going to church. But I often find church, quote unquote, in my car at Kroger, out in front of the house. Those moments where you just feel so tired and broken, or you want to give praise, or you want to seek direction. It's church. Would you just describe how you define church outside of a building?
There's my own time of study. There's my own time of worship, in the car, driving. Driving is where a lot of moms are. We're driving and we're worshiping in that. There was a time even cleaning. I know this sounds weird, but cleaning where I really met God, and I will never forget it. I was, told my child to go clean her room. And then I went in to go clean it and or help her kind of inspect. And I realized that she had shoved a lot of things behind the dresser, behind the shoved in the closet, shoved underneath the bed. And there was a moment where God goes, you think it's clean, but yet you've just shoved things in corners, and you shoved them to hide them. And I started crying on my daughter's floor, and it was so unbelievable. She was like, I'm sorry, Mommy, I meant to clean my room. And I go, no, it's not about you.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I know my room's a mess, but I'm sorry I made you cry. Oh my gosh.
No, I'm sorry, sweetie. It's not about you. This is just reminding me that God says, just because it looks clean doesn't mean that we've dealt with, everything in that. And that was I even would say, a very holy moment between the Lord and I, and just going, what people have meant to keep in darkness, God brings to the light, and so I was like, oh, okay. So what else do we need to get out here? And what else do we need to bring to the light and let the Lord deal with? So in those, I don't want to necessarily call them church moments. I think it's just worship, worshiping at the feet of the Lord. Another fun thing that I've done with a group of girlfriends from college, from Baylor, is that we have, I know it sounds interesting, we have started giving verses to each other and we diagram the sentences. I know it sounds weird, but we all love it because it brings the word.
This is what you do for fun. This is fun. You're a education degree, of course.
We're all actually educators. We're all teachers. And so I said to this one day, I said, hey guys, I want to do Bible study, but it's gonna be real simple. And they were like, okay. I said, we're going to diagram a sentence. We're going to diagram a verse. And my friend that was the English teacher was like, this is great. Love this.
Oh my gosh.
We discuss, what's the verb? What's the adjective? What's the main point of the verse? What's the noun, the verb, and the adjective? Where are those? And what do they modify? All those sort of things. We got into deep discussions just by diagramming a verse. But to me, that's the worshipful part of it, because we ministered to each other's hearts. So that's not the corporate worship that we're talking about, the corporate church, the learning together, the worshiping together, but it is a very holy relationship geared moments that I've had over and over and over. Yes. And the worship at the end of the week should just, enhance what you're doing during the week, in my opinion. So yeah, that's why I look forward to corporate worship.
I love that. And people are commenting that they love that as well. That is a great story. Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to it. Sometimes in your life, if you're in a season where you maybe don't have a relationship with Jesus, you go to church, you check the box if you go, but then you leave and there's nothing there, and until the next week maybe. And right. that really shifted for me when I realized the difference between relationship and religion. I want to get to that in a second, but I want to go back to what you said about cleaning, because that is so true. I find this freedom of mind. I actually enjoy cleaning, and I have to be careful not to clean to procrastinate from doing other things I'm supposed to be doing. But I do love it because it frees my mind. But this is interesting, is that today I said, if this comes up, it comes up. And it did, because you were just talking about cleaning. Yeah. And I never usually wear white on these shows, but I put this top on, and you can't see it, but there's a stain right here. I don't know what it's from. It's like a lipstick stain. And I went to go change out of this. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, it dawned on me, I am not going to change because of this stain. Right. And first of all, I thought about how metaphorical that is. Because we have stains, we all have stains. And I love that there's actually stains all over the shirt. You can't see it. But what I did was, before I had that revelation that it's a beautiful stain, I went in the laundry room and I put some bleach on a towel and I'm just scrubbing it. Like, come on, I'm not going to wear the shirt unless the stain comes out. So just know, if I seem a little loopy, I am breathing in bleach right now. A little bit bleach. What's happening? But I loved the metaphor of keeping this stain on my shirt, because that's what we're talking about. Yeah. God loves us, stains and all. And he is the ultimate, without trying to, I'm not trying to sound bumper sticker, but he is the ultimate stain remover. And that's what we are talking about. And we try to do that ourselves. We seek stain remover from the world. And sometimes people are going to get it right, and sometimes they're going to get it wrong. And this is always about grace. And for the people that maybe hurt us, or an organization that might have inadvertently hurt us, it's always about, having understanding about where they're coming from, but to move on in your Kroger parking lot, talking straight to Jesus and see what he has for you and what he has to say to you. Right. So getting back to the religion versus relationship, how would you break that down for people? Because it's so key. Look at your puppy. Look at your puppy.
Hi, Cassie.
Hello, puppy. Where's your chapstick? Puppy was ready for its close-up, and it wanted chapstick on, and so he was that's why he ran off with it.
Yeah, he ran off with it. I think the relationship is the daily conversation. I mean, you have to communicate. I mean, that's a big key thing, is to communicate with God in all sense of the word, in reading his word. I think in the worship that we focus on, in daily prayer with him, using the word for prayer. You know, it's sometimes we think, well, it's antiquated or it's old, it doesn't apply. And oh my word, it so applies to everything that we go through. And to pray the word is another way to do that. We have a great thing called the Handbook of Prayer that we can use, that we use as a manual, basically, and you're just praying the word, and it's so incredibly helpful. So it's just this daily thing. I mean, you wouldn't have a relationship with people that you don't talk to on a regular basis. That's not a real, you know, that's just checking in. You know, if you're not talking to them daily or having good conversations with them and letting them talk to you and you talking to them, that's a relationship, not necessarily the list of rules. Religion is that list of rules and the list of things that we've got to do and check the boxes, like you said. That's religion. And somebody else telling you what it looks like. And that's what I kind of go, I'm going to know what the word says. I'm going to know what it says in the gift that God gave us through scripture. And then in my conversations with him, and looking to him to lead me, and not just a group of people necessarily or a place, but it's my daily life, my daily heart, my daily conversations with him. That makes the relationship. And so I have to be open to that. I have to be open to what the word says, and I have to be open to what he has to say to me. So that's the relationship part of it. And also acknowledging, I think I realize what is a message that I heard from the world or from the religion, and what's the message from his word. And knowing the word helps distinguish those two. So looking at, I tell my kids a lot, don't trust my word for it. You need to look it up. You need to go search it out. If you want to challenge me, absolutely challenge me. You know, go find, ask questions. I'm a big, great question. You know, ask those questions. And there's a lot of people that went into a church setting that were told we don't question that. That's not me. I'm question. Let's ask questions. Let's look. And if I don't know, I'm going to tell you, I don't know. But let's look it up. Let's try. Let's find. Let's search. But we're not going to shut it down with, you know, I don't know, and we don't ask those questions. No, so that's the relationship part of it.
And that's some of that quote unquote inadvertent bad advice that we get.
Oh yeah.
We maybe have given in our life is don't do that. Don't either don't shine. Don't do that. If you shine, you can't glorify God. You need to play it, or you don't ask questions. First of all, you're gonna look stupid. Second of all, you don't question God. That comes up on this show a lot. A lot of people that were raised do not question God. Like the notion of being angry with God. It wasn't until, you know, several years ago I realized you can actually be angry with God, and you can tell him that. And
that was me in the church parking lot. I mean, that was me just being really angry. But I think we come from it. I think people say that a lot of times. My theory is that people say we don't question or we don't ask those questions because they don't know the answer. So they're like, we're just going to shut it off. So we're just not going to ask that question because I don't know. And I have no problem saying I don't know. But
that's true, because in our world, right, we can't look stupid. We can't look uninformed. Right. So it's easier. It's the path of least resistance. I really love that.
I think the other thing I would say is I don't know, but here's what I do know. Okay, I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know these things. I do know that God asks, you know, God loves us and adores us. So we're going to start from there. But it makes me sad that people that they're not allowed to ask questions. And it's simply because the person they're asking doesn't know. But that's where I come from, of going, all right, but let's look, let's research. Let's try to find it together. I had a little girl the other day. It was so great at church. Little girl, she's probably 10. Right before church, I was, you know, walking around, and she said, Miss Christy, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. You know, and she goes, are Jesus and God the same thing? I was like, that's a big question.
That's huge.
From a 10-year-old girl. And I was like, that's a huge question.
Yeah.
It was a big question. I said, that's a really big question. And I said, and I don't know that I can give you an answer that's going to completely you'll completely understand, because guess what? A lot of adults don't understand it either. But I said, yes. And I said, but we're going to spend the rest of our lives trying to understand that, because it goes beyond who we are as people.
Yes.
And so I said, that's what the answer I can give you now. But let's, we'll keep learning together. And I said, does that help at all? And she went, yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that she even asked that. And that you were the one that was there to catch that question.
I was very honored that she felt, and that's the earning the right to be heard. I mean, it was the fact that she trusted me enough to ask me that question. And I told her, I said, thanks for asking. Thanks for being bold enough to ask the question. That's huge, huge that she would just ask that question.
There's another story I'm going to have you tell in a minute. It's going to lead perfectly into children's ministry. But I wanted to ask your thoughts for the viewers is, where would you recommend that people start with the Bible? I know I was always so intimidated by the Bible, and I still, I've prayed over my role with the Bible, and I know my lane, and my calling isn't to be a Bible expert. And I had to learn that is okay. And Paul talks about, speaking simply and not comparing yourself to other types of wisdom. But where would you recommend that people, number one, where would you recommend that people start with the Bible? And number two, I encourage people to look at the Bible, because there are so many people in the Bible that had their issues with God or weren't believers, and you're not alone.
Not at all. The common one is to start, if you don't know anything about the Bible, if you don't know anything about Jesus or anything about that, is to start in the book of John, only because John was written in a way that was easy to understand. And it's a good comprehensive view of who Jesus was on earth. So that's a good one to start with. And I'm a big believer of taking it in small sections, because you could read through it and then go back and start and read in littler chunks, because then you get to meditate. I'm a big meditate on different words. So I like to think on it and go, how do these words relate? And that's why I love the word itself, because when you start meditating on it, go, what does that mean? What is that really saying? Or also looking at different versions, because there's a lot of different versions out there. Because sometimes, but that might be a little more in depth for some. But starting in a lot of people ask me, what book should I get, or what Bible should I get my kids? And I go, one they'll read. So you got to find one that you'll actually read. So don't start in something that's really heavy or that's too wordy, and then that sounds weird, but something that is easy for you to read. The Psalms is also a good place, because there's a lot of people in David and Moses and Solomon that wrote in the Psalms things that were coming up in their life, and they're lamenting to God. And you're going, wow, they were upset. They didn't like what was going on in the world. They felt like they were being persecuted. They felt like everybody was against them. We just did at church Psalm 73, and it was a great psalm of going, I feel like I'm doing all the right things, and everybody else is getting away with terrible things, and they're living great lives and having great success. And here I am doing the right thing, and I feel like I'm not successful. And that was somebody, just ranting to God, going, what's the deal? But it was at the end going, but my life is for a greater purpose. And that was just huge. And I'm like, that's extremely timely, extremely. So Psalms are a good place to start in chunks. And then if you're wanting to know about who Jesus was, and in the New Testament in a small form, go to the book of John.
Yeah, so good. That's a great place to start. And I was explaining to my girls that Psalms is great because a lot of it is written by David, and not only written by David, but written in a time where he was dealing with all sorts of emotion and toward God, and just being challenged and being, angry and all of his emotions. And it's really powerful. I know I just used to be really intimidated by it because I didn't know where to begin. And funny, today I was looking for something in my Bible, and I looked in the back, and I was reminded that there is an index where you can look up a word.
Absolutely.
Word of shame, or whatever word it is for you, just look it up and go there. And it'll give you, it's very, very, very relatable. And I never knew that. Oh, look who's on here. My mama. Look what she says. Hi, Mom. Everybody's got to love the mama. She says, I have this on my phone as a reminder every day. Never give up hope. God moves at his own speed. We must learn to be patient and trust him. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Patience, patience. I know, because it's about God's will. We always want it in our time and with our will.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So you, I love your ministry. I love what you're doing. Would you tell everybody? Well, you do so many things. You're a master teacher at your church, which is Fellow Bible Church.
No. It's Stonebridge Bible Church.
So, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I got that from someone. Scratch that out. Master teacher. Yes. Okay. That church. And you have worked with children's ministry. And tell us about what you are doing on TikTok now.
TikTok. So I've been in children's ministry for over 20 years. Well, I also say I never graduated from children's ministry because I grew up in the church.
Yeah, you're leading the class now.
Yeah, I was just like, well, I'll just stay here. They're fun. So we were kind of challenged in our church. Are we spreading the gospel as much as we are other issues? Are we talking about the gospel as much as we are other things? And I was struck by the fact that every week I get to talk to kids about the sermon that's going to be in our church. We kind of do it the old-fashioned way, is that we have the sermon, but then I have the kids come up right before that sermon, and I give a mini sermon just for the kids. And it's kind of started like that organically. I said, I can do that. And then now that's just part of who we are as a church. And it's kind of like, I had somebody say to me, it's kind of like the appetizer before the main course of our pastor. So it gives everybody a kind of framework, but I break things down pretty simply for the average first grader. And I was struck by the fact that there are people with church hurt who've probably walked away from, from the church, but knowing some things. And then there's probably people that don't have a clue as to what the Bible is, or who God is, or they didn't grow up with any kind of spirituality in their home. And my kids were on TikTok a lot, and I was actually following a couple pastors on TikTok, and I was like, this is really good. This is really good stuff. And there are people on there, and it's only the maximum time you can have is 60 seconds to say something. And there were pretty powerful things that were being said, pastors praying over people. And I was just struck by going, if people are just scrolling through, what if I did, 60 seconds of a Sunday school? Because some people did have Sunday school teachers that they loved, or that really had an impact on them, like I did too. And I've been doing this so long, I thought I can do a Bible story in 60 seconds. I can do a talk in 60 seconds. And I've been Miss Christy for 20 years. So I decided I'm going to start a TikTok series called 60 Second Sunday School with Miss Christy. And it's been really fun. It's trying to get something down in 60 seconds, but in a very simple way, in a very simple concept. And it's been a joy. It's been a challenge. I thought, wow, 60 seconds is not a whole lot, but just trying to get simple concepts again for the person that maybe has walked away from church or that has never heard a message at all. And I realized that I'm coming at, I may be the first person they've heard talk about Jesus. And I take that very seriously, and I got to earn my right to be heard. So I started that at that place. And that's what the ministry kind of is. And if I can present the gospel in 60 seconds, then that's, one of the videos that I had 1,000 people view it. It's only like my third video, but it was like 1,000 people heard a very simple gospel. And if that makes them want to go out and seek more, that's, how awesome is that? That's a seed, and let's go with that. I can't ask for more than that. It's amazing to me that we're in this platform, and the algorithm is such that once you look at one thing, you'll be led to something else. So if that works, and that it just pops up on somebody's, when they're scrolling, then they get to hear it in 60 seconds. So
I love it. Well, you are doing such a good job with that. As a matter of fact, let me show a clip of what you're doing.
Hi, y'all. It's time for 60-Second Sunday School with Miss Christy. Today, we're going to talk about the gospel. Did you know that you were designed to have a relationship with God? That's what you were created to do. And it's kind of like this balloon was designed to fly. But you know what? There are weights that are holding this balloon from doing what it was designed to do. And our sin holds us down. Things like lying, stealing, cheating, disobeying our parents. And we can try everything in our power to shake off that sin, that weight, but there's nothing we can do about it. The only person that can set us free from that sin is Jesus. And what he does is he comes and he separates us from that sin, so we're free to fly.
I love that. I love that. I forgot about that when I was using the hot air balloon analogy, but that just fit in perfectly.
Yeah.
And I've watched your others, and you do such a good job of making it simple. And that's what it's about. You know, we it's our human nature sometimes to complicate things. And that's what I was saying in the beginning of this, is just keeping it simple and not overthinking it, and just letting that love and that truth seep in is where it's at. Okay, you may not know this, but I just changed my shirt. I had to take that shirt off.
I just noticed you have a jacket on.
I literally had to throw it across the room, and I turned around a couple minutes ago, and I had to see if I had my jacket. The fumes? I thought I rinsed it. You were talking at one point, and I was like, I'm going down. I'm going down. Christy, take it from here. I was getting nauseous. Okay, but then I thought, that is perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, could this analogy be more perfect? Because with the worldly bleach that we try to rid ourselves of with our stains, it's going to leave you a little nauseous. It's going to leave you feeling woozy. It's going to feel like you need to remove that and throw it across the room. But that love that we get, that bleach remover, if you will, I swear I didn't plan this. That's just coming out. That bleach remover that only Jesus can give us is never going to leave us ultimately feeling that way. It might stir some things in us. We got to reroute. It might give us some feelings that we have to deal with, but that's never the intention. So I love it. Okay, that shirt is across the room. I'm gonna throw that in the washer. Girl, I was like, if this jacket hadn't been here, I got to think. Lord, have mercy. Okay, I was literally getting woozy. Okay, so here we are. That is your video, and it's so beautiful. Now, with your children's ministry, I have a video. What's that?
Where's my husband?
Hi, husband. We're gonna give you your Wi-Fi back soon and your microphone. Thank you.
Is that fun?
Thank you for sharing, Christy. I love it. You guys are sharing Wi-Fi. You said you got. As soon as this is done, you got to give them the Wi-Fi back.
No, we got to give him the microphone.
And the microphone. Oh, the microphone. Yes.
The good mic.
The good mic. So I have a video clip that I'm going to play.
Okay.
Of you in your comedy, but to set that up even further, because you are talking about children's ministry. There's a story that you told me about a little boy who said, well, do you remember that story? Or I can introduce a little boy. He said he can't come up there.
Oh, it was a little girl.
A little girl. Would you tell that story? Because it was so good.
So we have the kids come forward at church, and they sit on the floor, and there's at the end of that, they can go back to their seats and they get a paper that I've made for them about the sermon. And then at the end of the service, they can come back up and get a treat. Because, I mean, come on, candy is currency for a kid. But there's some accountability. There's some reasons for that. But this little girl one time came to me after the service, and I was handing out candy, and she said, "Miss Christy, I can't come up there during the service." And I was like, that's fine. And she was like, can I still turn in my paper and get a piece of candy? I was like, absolutely. She goes, I just can't come up there. And I was like, it's fine. You can hear me from your seat, right? And she's like, yes, but someday I'll be able to come up. And there was a bravery in that. that she was being vulnerable to me. And it was a fear that she had of, and I kind of asked her, I said, well, is it just because you're, what is it about it that's a little scary? And she's like, I just don't want to be people looking at me like that. And I said, that's okay. I love that you even told me that. I love, you can stay right where you are. And someday, she was like, someday I'll be able to come up there, but just not today. And I was like, I am so fine with you staying there. It doesn't change anything. You can, get the piece of paper and come get the candy and whatever you want to do. But thanks for telling me. Thanks for admitting that. And it seemed like such a simple thing, like for some kids, they're running up there, but for her, that was the vulnerable place that she was at, and that she had to, but she admitted that and she recognized it in herself. She was probably 10, same thing. But, she hasn't come forward before, but she does talk to me, which I'll take, I'll take that.
I love that it was a little girl too, or even if it was a little boy, because it just represents those versions of us where we feel that something. And that's what I said in the promo for today. Do you feel like you just need to stiff arm the idea of faith or Jesus because you just can't go there? You just can't do it. I love that story. You are so good at what you do. Of course, I want to talk about your comedy career too in a minute, but I want to just get back real quick to what you said about that committee. So the committee in your mind and the people that are talking to you, the advice. And I just want to go back to that for everybody that's watching, is just to hang on to that visual. That is so powerful, because those committees inside our heart and our soul, and they feed our mind. They feed those pivotal moments where the thing already happened, and then they feed how then we feel about ourselves, and then they feed the lessons that we feel like we've learned and the way that we have to act. And the great thing is we can just, like that healing process you did with your counselor, is to write it down, like put a value on that.
Right. Yeah. And fire them. That's what's like, you're fired. You can't be on the committee anymore.
Yes. And understand that they served us well. They taught us. It's like a protective barrier. They protected us for a while, but then now we know the truth, and we can release that committee release the committee. And you actually, one of the things, did I get this right when we were talking? Did you say one of the how the ways to how you get overcome this is to first put a value on the pain? Is that what you said? Put a value on the pain, or to put a value on revealing it. That's going back to the beginning of what we were talking about. That's one of the most important things, is to just put a value on it and don't stuff it in the basement. Right.
It's to bring it out into, acknowledge it and bringing it out into public view, and in your own brain, and going, what is this really? What is this really doing? What is the value of what this rule or this saying or this person or whatever, what is it? And is it really that worth that much? Is it holding me back, or is it keeping me from doing something else? Why am I giving it so much power? Why am I giving this one phrase that this one person, why are they getting so much of my brain power? And no, you're done. That's what it's like. But acknowledging that and bringing it out into the light, as even the scripture talks about, bringing that out and saying, is that truth or is that not truth? That's not truth. Why am I giving it so much value? Why am I giving it so much power? And you're done. So I'm not going to give you power anymore over me in that committee, whatever that committee is in my head, then you're not allowed here anymore. And acknowledging and calling that out. Yeah. And I've had to do that a lot, going, no, you're done.
Yeah. You're done. I love that. This is just, I know this is blessed hearts. I am praying that it has set people free, or it's the beginning steps in the journey of setting them free from the sandbags, from the, with the hot air balloon wanting to rise. I know that it has. And I love that this is recorded, and someone may see this, 3 or 4 years from now, because they're all stored on YouTube and on this page, and people are gonna be like, Baylor won? What?
That was the first time. That was the first time they won.
They're gonna be like, usually I don't like to put like relevant, timely things. or about the weather or about a season, but I had to mention that. Let's talk. We can't not talk about your comedy career. How'd you start doing comedy? I love watching your comedy.
Oh, thanks. It was when we moved to Nashville. We moved from Houston to Nashville, and I took a season of to be still and know, be still and know that he has God. And I'd never moved from, out of the state of Texas. And I was just going to not do anything for a year. And my husband said to me, what is something you've always wanted to try? And I said, I've always wanted to try stand-up. I was influenced a lot as a kid by Mike Warnke and then Isaac Airfreight, which was a comedy sketch group that did great storytelling of scripture. Mm-hmm. And I was always drawn to that. And so I thought I would love to be, in making people laugh, and which I love to do, and also being a good storyteller. And so I took a stand-up class with Rick Roberts and here in Nashville, and then took his writing class and then his stand-up class, and then just dove in where I could. And it's been fun. And I remember I watched Bone Hampton one time just talk about the funny things in the church. And suddenly I went, oh my gosh, we can laugh at the church.
You can laugh at that's freeing in itself. I texted Bone today because I know you guys are really good friends. I love Bone. I texted him and said, hey, I'm on with Christy, 30 minutes, join us. I don't know if he's on here or not, but yeah, I love relatable comedy, isn't it? And that's what you're saying. That's how you started in. You're like, this can be relatable. Yeah.
So it's fun because I use a lot of it. I think Michael Jr. asked me one time, he goes, what do you do with comedy? And I said, well, I teach kids about Jesus. But that's what I do. Also to just make scripture come alive for kids, and then make it relevant to them so they understand, but then also to just laugh at some of the things that we do in church. Like I do a thing about how we turn, playground games into church games, and
well,
we turn Duck Duck Goose into disciple Jesus or Judas.
You do the coolest things. I loved hearing your stories. You guys have to find her on TikTok, and if you don't have TikTok, download it just so you can find Christy. Let me show a little example of your comedy.
Confession: I don't go to church. I work at a church, and I'm in children's ministry. And one of the greatest things about children's ministry is you get questions that you weren't prepared to answer on a Sunday morning. Like this. Miss Christy, when Moses had crossed the Red Sea and Pharaoh followed after him and all the water came crashing down on them, did that mean that the horses died too? Were they evil horses? Why did the horses have to die? I don't know. And then you get this. If David had seen Bathsheba in the shower, would she have been Shower Sheba? No. But then I've also learned you have to proofread whatever you give to a child to read from the Bible. So this happened to me recently. Okay, now boys and girls, we're going to read about David and Goliath. And Goliath has just challenged God and said that he could beat up anybody. So David's going to talk to his men and try to get them to fight Goliath, okay? Rachel, you're going to read, and you're going to read to everybody from the Bible. Okay, thank you, Miss Christy. And David said to Goliath, what will be done for this man? What will be done to the man who fights this uncircumcised? Miss Christy, what is that word? That's uncircumstantial. That's what it is, separated from God. And then you got some homeschooler in the back that goes, that's not what it says. That's not what it says. We did an art project on that last week, and that's not what it says. I know. But I'll tell you one thing, make sure you check your references before you write them down. I used to encourage children by writing, you can do this, you are wonderful, love Miss Christy, Micah 1:8. And I had somebody ask me, what is Micah 1:8? It says, well, he has shown thee, O man, what is good and what the Lord required of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. That's Micah 6:8. What's Micah 1:8? I'll tell you. For this reason I will weep and wail. I will go barefoot and naked. I will moan like an owl and howl like a jackal.
So when you vote for me today for your fan favorite, you can write Christy Conder, Micah 1:8.
Oh, I love that. Oh my God. That is so, oh my God. It's so relatable. I love that. And I love what happened at the end there where you got the scripture. You got it wrong. And
So wrong.
What? So what? I mean,
2 years said that and no one checked it.
people start bringing their kids to Bible class. Like, what's happening? That is funny. What I loved about the first clip, well, not only is it because it's so funny, is that you were joking about just crying with the kids, you know, and that it's just, you're just so relatable. And I am so thankful that you are doing what you do, because you've found, we all look for that purpose, and you do so many amazing things. You make people laugh everywhere with your comedy and with the ministry and TikTok and teaching and all of it. You are just such a beautiful, beautiful light in this world. So
it's just, you know, it's all about the gospel. It's like if we're not going to be standing before God, you know, talking about all the things that we necessarily did, but it's who did we bring? Who did we share the gospel with? And that's what it comes down to is are we presenting the gospel to the world? That's it. That's it. And the only things that will last are God's people and his word. And that's it. That's it. The souls of his people. And we gotta bring them, we gotta show them Christ.
Yes. Yes.
So
I love it. Where can people find you?
In Nashville? No.
I'm sitting right here.
South of Nashville. Yeah.
Your website, where can they find you?
It's ChristyConder.com. It's Conder, not Condor. We're not birds. But
or Condors. There's no S.
Yeah, and then we're not multiple. We're not plural. It's ChristyConder.com. So yeah, that's my Facebook page or my website. So yeah.
All right. Well, two points here at the end. One is there's somebody that just was, well, here, I'll put it up here. They were commenting, I have to get toxic people out of my life. However, I'm still trying to get them out of my mind, praying for guidance. So with that in mind, and with everything else in mind that we just talked about, what would you like to say in closing here?
I think the like I have said in different Bible studies, or something recently that came, we were looking at Hebrews 12:2, and it said that Christ, for the joy set before him, despising the shame. And despising the shame always gave me pause for a second, because I was like, despising was not, and I meditate on the word. I'm like, despising, what does that mean? Despising the shame. And at first I was going to present this to the kids, and I was like, the shame was nothing. And I wanted to go, but the shame's not nothing. We're diminishing the value of the shame. But then I'm like, but then when I did a little research on it, I was like, that's what Christ did. He basically said, compared to the joy of eternity, compared to the joy of salvation, the shame is that big. I mean, if it is nothing compared to the joy of knowing that we will spend eternity with him, then knowing that he was going to take care of all our sin. So despising the shame is more like, it's nothing. It is nothing compared to the joy, joy, joy set before me. And that just gave me just inspiration to tell the kids, going, look, don't, those toxic things, those toxic people, those toxic thoughts, they are nothing compared to the joy of knowing who God is in your life, and that he that you know that he loves and adores you, and his salvation comes through Christ. And that nothing has power compared to that. Nothing. You have ultimate power when you know that you know that you know that. Nothing. This despising the shame. Put away the shame. It's not. It has no value over that knowing Christ.
It's like the thread word, other than Jesus, it's gone through this today, is simplicity.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
And we can get caught in the muck and the lack of understanding, and then the feelings of lack. And it's really just that simple.
Yeah. And it's a daily challenge. I love that. It's a daily challenge, and I don't want to diminish that either. But
No.
but yet you go, okay, God, you lead me. You lead me in this. I'm going to despise the shame today before the joy set before you, you and the joy set before me in you. I'm gonna do that, and acknowledge too. There's some days it's gonna be easier than others. I mean, I believe that. I've pushed stuff in the corner. I've pushed stuff under the bed,
Right.
but just don't let it sit there and fester. But acknowledge it, and every day it gets easier. Every day it gets better if we're working toward it and asking God to meet us there, because He will. He'll meet us there.
Gosh, I wish I would have, in hindsight now, or to go back and edit this video, I would put kind of like steps up or the how-to. But informally, they're not in order. But what I'm hearing in this from your thoughts, from both of our experience, is to, like we talked about, put a value on the pain, reveal it. When you're comfortable, share it with somebody that you trust, a Christian that you trust, that you really feel in your spirit is not going to judge you.
Right.
And
or diminish it. I mean, or just devalue it. Oh, get over that. Don't.
No. Oh, that's
no.
I talk about that all the time when we say that to people, or we've heard that. Just get over it. Just don't. It's unfortunately bad advice. So,
gee, I never thought of that. That's what I always say. Oh, okay.
Oh, wait. You mean stop crying?
Oh, okay.
Oh, God.
Let me write that down.
Hang on a minute. Just 1 second.
I'm going to stitch that on a pillow.
A lot of comedy is obviously sarcasm, because we do that. I do it all the time, but that is true. I never thought of it that way, but that is true. So put a value on the pain, reveal it to someone that you trust, and process through it with all the great things that we talked about today. But ultimately, we're talking about surrendering it. Sure. Surrendering it. But you know what? It's not about, okay, here I go. I'm going to officially surrender. And then that's going to be it. It's a daily, minute by minute. Kroger visit by Kroger visit. Surrender before you
in the Kroger parking lot. Wait, is it the same if I go to the Publix parking lot? I don't know.
It's the same. Before you walk in there to get that shaved ham, you need to just take a minute and get in touch with what's going on in there, because it's so important. If we do push it down, I told a friend yesterday. She was kind of saying, I went to coffee with a friend, and she was like, I just want to be able to just get through this, And I said, okay, but here's the thing: if you're wanting to walk straight, it's like somebody saying, just walk straight, just walk normal. And you go, but I got this limp, and I got this callus on my foot, or I got this pain in my leg. I got a broken leg. So I'm going to try to walk straight. I'm going to try to walk without a limp, but I got this broken leg and this, this something on my foot, and the shoes are too tight, and we're still trying to walk straight. But you're like, you haven't dealt with the issues here. Right.
You're not going to be able to walk straight when your leg is broken. It's you got to deal with that, the healing of that, to be able to walk straight. So, I mean,
yes,
that's the thing I said to her yesterday. Wow. It made more sense even to me. I was like, oh yeah, maybe I do have a little bit of a limp. Yeah.
One of my kids is going through a painful time right now, a lot of tears, and you want to give that motherly, wisdom. We have a lot of it, but then you realize over the years, you're like, maybe it's not time for that right now. What I explained to her is like, honey, I have so much to say to you, but it's like a broken ankle. It's going to swell up. We're not going to go in and treat it in that moment. Let's let the swelling go down, and then we're going to get to the heart of the matter. So that's important for all of us to remember. And like you just said, I love this. Has been amazing. I am so thankful for your time. Thank you. You've been a blessing, and I just pray that whoever was supposed to hear this today or in the future, it'll fall in their path. Okay. Me too. Well, thank you. Hold on 1 second. We'll chat. But for now, we'll see you in a minute. Oh, wow. These coffee chats, I just have to take a second and breathe it in. Wasn't that was amazing? That meant a lot to me. I wish I'd have had something like this years ago. But I know that our journey goes the way that our journey is supposed to go. And when that time is right, and we've lived the experiences, we've lived the shame, we've lived the doubt, when we get to the end of ourselves, sometimes that's where we start to find the truth. I want to share this story with you that I don't know, some of you might have seen. I did a Facebook Live today to talk about the fact that Christy was going to be on, and we were going to be talking about this. I had just pulled up in our driveway from dropping off our daughter at school, and I was doing my Facebook Live. And as I was literally doing the Facebook Live, I glanced over at this little section of our yard that I've been trying to do one little section at a time. And that's great advice right there, I guess, metaphorical. When you're dealing with something really overwhelming, my wisdom this year said, you don't have to go out there all in one day and tackle it all. Do bit by bit. So the other day, I just cleared out this area where the hostas used to be. They're beautiful in the summer. And I cleared them all out. I got rid of all the dead weeds and everything that was just weighing down that area because I wanted them to be able to bloom. And I looked out the window yesterday at that clear space and I went, oh, nothing's blooming yet, but I can't wait to see the blooms. And when I was doing a Facebook Live just today, talking about new hope in Jesus, I glanced over and this is what I saw. I saw this picture, and so I put scripture with it. This is what I saw, and it says, this is from 2 Corinthians 5:17. It says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. Talk about weepy-eyed. Those are the God sprinkle moments that I just love. I feel so honored that God's given me the eyes to see, that I saw the new blooms today. On a day where I am talking about, and Christy and I are talking about that withered, maybe those withered dry beliefs, or that withered dry shame and guilt, that guess what? It served its purpose, but it was time to weed that out. Weed out your garden, your heart, your mind, your soul, bit, by little bit. It doesn't have to be all at once. But hold true. Hold tight to the truth that's on its way, that you are loved beyond love. Church is amazing. The fellowship in a building, amazing. We love to go to church. We love it. I love the faith that I get to feel. I love the faith and the truth that I get to feel in my soul every single day when I have to surrender whatever it is. I get to surrender it. Ultimately, after I put a value on that pain, a value on that shame, a value on that guilt, release its power, like Christy was talking about, and look for the opportunity to surrender it. Look for the opportunity to just know that Jesus has nothing but pure love and grace for you. And when we seep that into our heart, you can only begin to feel then the new blooms that are waiting for you. You guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Christy, for joining me today. I love coffee chats. I don't know that these will end anytime soon, because this is my passion, and I love this, and I love all of you. So until next week, I'm praying for every single one of you, and I hope that you have a beautiful, beautiful week searching for the new blooms. Bye, everybody.